y'all, happy Wednesday. Tonight we are doing the quilt as you go method, and we are gonna, that's what that means is we're taking these smaller quilted pieces and we are going to make them into bigger quilted pieces. So we're basically connecting them all together. So that'll be the process tonight. Thanks for joining me. My name is Alyssa Thomas from Penguin and Fish, where we make cute embroidery kits for the beginning crafter. And I'm here every weeknight at 8:30 p.m. Central Time. That's 9:30 Eastern and 6:30 Pacific. And it's a time that we can just chill and relax and craft together. I'm here for about an hour and I work on projects from beginning to end so you can be part of the whole process along the way. So tonight we are continuing the Splendid Sampler 2. That's the book right here. We are slowly working our way through all of these quilt blocks. I think just about 50. I think I'm either 50 or 51. I'm gonna have to check again. But we took a little break this week from actually making blocks and we are putting the blocks together. So here's one from earlier. This is 4 blocks that we've put together. And then we're quilting. This is the one that we quilt on Monday. This cute little sunshine. We did all this machine quilting on it. I think it turned out so cute. And then last night we started the quilt as you go process. So we quilted smaller pieces and now we're connecting them with this binding strip here. We got like a little sashing / binding strip in the middle, and that is what's hooking all of these smaller pieces together. So we have one more that we've already quilted. This one here, this one we actually hand quilted. And tonight we're gonna trim this up. I think we'll have to fix some things like we did last night, and we'll do the quilt as you go process to get this piece onto the next piece, and you have like nice clean edges, because right now we have all the raw edges from the fabric and the batting. The quilt as you go process cleans it all up and connects everything really nicely. So, all right, that is the plan. I'm gonna flip you around. Let's get going here. Oh, it's kind of gloomy and rainy-ish here too, Jennifer. I just want some nice spring days. That would be good. All right, so here is the one we did yesterday. We attached this set of 4 to this set here that I already had to attached. So this is what we did. We did this little sashing piece. It looks just like these other sections, but it's actually that special quilt as you go piece. The combination of this and the piece on the back that connect these 2 squares. So tonight I'm going to machine sew this on. This one we hand stitch. You can see all the little hand stitches along the edge here. We're going to machine stitch it on tonight because I know that's pretty tough on the hands and not everyone is going to want to do that. So I think we're going to attach it to this side tonight. So first thing, this is the one that we're going to attach. So these 2 will go together like this. The first thing though is we need to trim this piece down to the 13 inches. We still have all the edges from the back of the quilt and the batting. We're going to trim this down. I suspect like some of these blocks look like they may be a hair small. We might need to attach some extra fabric to this first, so the top is actually 13 inches. So we may have to take a little stall for that tonight. We had to do that here too. We had to add a little bit to the bottom just because some of these blocks just ended up being a bit smaller. And these all are pieced blocks, which I suspect got pretty small as well. So we might have to do some repair first, but then we will get these 2 together and we'll do it the machine stitching way. So let's start out by first trimming this to the 13 inches. Oh, you love the clock. Yeah, that was a fun one. This was all foundation paper piece. There's so many little pieces in there. Crazy, crazy. Okay, I'm gonna get my cutting mat out. This is that Olfa expandable cutting mat. Pretty fun. All right. I can tell we're getting to a quilt size here. All my pieces are getting bigger and bigger and expanding on this table. I'm in just a small little like kitchen nook area, so anytime we get to like the big piece stage, then it gets a little crazy here. All right, I am just gonna measure. I'm trying to get in the center here. I don't have a 13-inch ruler. This is a 12.5-inch ruler, so I'm going to run. So 6.5 and 6.5 inches is 13 inches. So I'm going to try and line up the 6.5 inch with the middle part. So this is the middle square. And I got these little these inner border pieces. They're called sashing. They're white. They blend in with the rest of it. I'm going to try and center that at that 6.5 inch mark. So, all right. 6.5. And same thing down here for 6.5. And that's kind of my plan for squaring this up, just getting those 6.5 inch marks. It's a little awkward, a little weird, but we're gonna get it. It would be really nice to have a 13-inch ruler, but this will work as well. All right, so I think that'll give us these two edges. And then we'll have to shift down and do that 6.5 again, kind of to get the 13-inch. I probably could do this. There's probably an easier way to do this, but this is how we're doing it. All right, let's get a rotary cutter and my cutting glove out. Gina, I do too. Whenever I see that clock, I think of Beauty and the Beast. All right, so I'm just going to get these two edges. And we need to extend them a little farther, actually, because we're missing that 1/2 inch. Ooh, wow, we have a lot of layers here. Might be time to change this rotary cutter blade. Holy cow. All right, we got it. All right, and then shifting it a bit here. Ooh, maybe my line moved a little bit. We're going to scooch up just a hair. All right about there. Yes, so my Kathy, my sashing pieces are 6.5 inches. I will get a few out in a moment here, but they're 6.5 inches. That's the size of an unfinished block, one of our unfinished blocks here, and by 1 inch. And then the square, that little square, is 1 inch by 1 inch. Just going to extend that a bit. But my sashing pieces here are going to be the same size as that sashing piece I used to connect them. So I'll show you guys that for sure. All right, I think I'm going to just kind of align this with my ruler here, my cutting mat lines, and that's going to help me get this 13 inches, I think. Actually, you know what? Maybe I'll just skip this square. That's been giving me trouble. Why don't I just use the lines on my mat and kind of be done with it? Okay, 1, 2, 3. Now that we have two nice edges here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. All right, let's just cut along that line. Yeah, we are going to have to add quite a bit to this side, but I have a pretty good side over here, so we might not have to do any repairs tonight, but at some point we are going to have to add some edge to here. I maybe didn't quite center this, but we're doing it 13 inches now. It's going to be what it's going to be at this point. Oh, wow. Yeah, time to get a new blade on here. I should easily be able to cut through all that. I think I have more rotary cutter blades at the office. I'll have to grab one and bring it home here. All right, let's get another 13 inches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I don't trust just using the ruler. I have to count. Oh yeah, so Tamara, I am trying to get into the habit of wearing a glove when I cut for the purpose of not, my safety's on this right now, but for the purpose of not like sliding and cutting a finger, or if I accidentally have a finger in front of the ruler, I don't want to accidentally do that. This is primarily for not cutting my finger off. I've seen and heard too many horrible horror stories about that. I mean, this is like a razor blade right here, so that will cut through, it'll cut to the bone for sure. Ugh, yuck. So I'm trying to get in the habit of wearing a glove for that reason. It was a little annoying to get started, but now I'm actually kind of nervous when I don't wear it. Secondarily, it does help a lot with the grip of the ruler, and I use it for like free motion quilting and other things. But it really, and it needs to be grippy to, otherwise your hand will just slide on the ruler. I have another one too that has little grip dots on, but it is primarily so I don't chop a finger off and go to the emergency room, which I do not want to do. Okay. So here's our 13-inch square. That's looking nice. So some of the things we are going to have to deal with later, though, see all of this batting that's exposed. What we really should have done is before I quilted this, so this is already quilted. Before I quilted this, I should have added a little bit more just to make sure that this was going to be big enough. But we're here now, so we're going to have to deal with it now. Also, along this bottom edge, it looks like it could use some repair too, and that's what we had to do last night. And I think we're going to deal with that tonight. Oh, and actually, we were going to attach this to here. So we will have to repair this as well. Ugh, do I really want to do that? We could attach it to this side. But then we have to repair this side. So we're going to have to repair one side or the other. This side is nice. Let's just do some repairs. So it'll take a little longer tonight. I'm going to just repair this edge, and all I'm going to do is sew a bunch of white strips that I have on hand and just sew along the edge. I might only have to go on this one, and then, I don't know, it's going to be a little goofy, but let's give it a go. A little repair shop before we move on. So here are some of my sashing strips. I already have them cut. I'm going to just use these to kind of fix some things. So I'm going to sew this edge, and then I'm just going to fold it over. And then we'll have enough white there, I think. I might not even, well, I should probably attach, let's see. I could fold this in first to get a nice edge here, and then, this is getting crazy here. Then sew it down, and then just top stitch this little area. Oh, that's kind of weird, isn't it? I don't know, maybe it's not. Trying to figure out a little repair. Yeah, I think we're going to fold this in just so we have the nice edge. Oh, but it needs to be long enough. Or we just continue all the way down. We might just do that. So I'm going to start by sewing 3 pieces together. Oh, I'm repairing just because I have, the batting's exposed here, and a 1/4 inch. So normally whenever we sew something on, we would line up the edge and sew with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. But if I do that, I'm still going to have stuff exposed because this is bigger than a 1/4 of an inch. So that's why I need to repair it. I need my final piece to be 13 inches, but, this piece, you can even see, look at how wonky this piece is. So when we stitched this piece, we were handling it so much, and I probably didn't sew it very well to begin with, that the block that was supposed to be 6.5 inches did not end up being 6.5 inches. It ended up being probably more like 6 inches with a really wonky side, and then this side looks good. So this was I probably was able to get 6.5 inches tall, but not wide. So what I should have done is repair the block at that point, but I didn't. I sewed it in with the rest of this. So now I'm in this weird position where I have to deal with it, really. So I think I'm going to just sew a couple strips together to get one long strip, and I'm going to just sew all the way down and be done with it. In the final quilt, I don't think you'll be able to tell really all that much because I have so much white in this quilt that if a couple of these blocks are a little skinnier, you know, this one too, if it's a little skinnier, I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. So we had to do this last night too, and this is again just me not thinking of my future self, basically, right? So so now my past self is having to deal with the fallout, and so we have to get creative and get it going a little bit, but won't be the end of the world. It'll just be a little bit more time tonight. So, but this is our last one that we actually have done and quilted. So we do have the opportunity to make it right after today, because we'll get to start fresh with the new blocks. All right, so all I'm doing now is just making a long white strip so I can do these quick repairs here. All right, let's get the pressing mat out. I need to press these seams quickly. Hold on a sec. All right, I'm gonna just plop it right on top of my piece here. Let's just press these seams open and be done with it. I'm pressing them open so that the bulk of the seam is even on both sides there. All right, good enough. All right, now let's see how this goes. I am gonna clip these in place as well. So what I'm doing is I'm treating this weird raw edge and then some of this down here that we also need to kind of repair as kind of like a little edge. And I might even go, gosh, should I go a diagonal like that? Ugh. You know what? I might just sacrifice this edge here to fix this upper one, because this upper one is what's really, really far off. So I'm gonna just align that top edge here. Actually, let's go from this way so I can sew it a little easier. I can veer a little bit maybe. There, we'll go right there. I'm gonna grab some clips. This is quite a big jump. Like, I hope that I don't have this anywhere else in my quilt. This is quite the large jump, but I think this might have been hand pieced, and it just ended up a little small, so oh well. All right, let's give that a go. I think that will be enough for us to do what we need to do tonight, though, so we'll just have to make this one repair. We won't have to do the bottom edge, I don't think. We can do that later. Then we'll wonder why we didn't do it now. Okay, so I'm gonna just sew with like 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Just so I'm just grabbing the edges here. We don't need a ton. As long as I'm catching the fabric. And that's what I need to pay attention to when I'm up top here. Oop. Seam allowance getting folded up. Oh, thanks, Debbie. Well, What's the saying? Something like, oh gosh, I don't even know the saying, but like when something's in, when you're faced with like a need, with a problem, you gotta figure it out somehow. It's either this or throw it away, right? I'm not doing that. All right, let's get another guy in there. Give it a little snip. Oh, you know what I did not do is change my check on my bobbin. So hopefully the bobbin lasts tonight. Oh, you need to do the same thing. Okay, Dee Dee. Yeah, I think I'm gonna have that problem a lot in here because when you're handling these blocks and when you're quilting, I mean, the act of quilting is making certain spots like poofier than others, right? Well, that poof is fabric. So if you are, in 3D space using up fabric, it's got to pull from the edges, right? So anytime we're quilting this, we are pulling things away from the edges, and that's when we get, our exposed batting and stuff. So, this might not be the best quilt to have done quilt as you go with from that standpoint. I'm thinking if we use some bigger, more forgivable blocks, it might be easier, but, we're dealing with it how we can. But there, see, so I sewed along the edge of where we actually did have fabric left here. And now when I flip this over, it's going to cover up. See, it's covering up this big pile of batting, just barely. So this is just big enough all the way down. And it's white. It's going to blend in with all the rest of the stuff. So it's not a huge deal. So I'm going to press this. We'll trim off the top and then we'll trim it back down to 13 inches because a lot of it's hanging over the edge there. We do have this seam, but that should be covered up for the most part when we do the... when we stitch it won't be completely covered up, but it'll be covered up a little bit, or hidden maybe a little, when we add our quilt as you go pieces. It'll probably still be pretty visible, but gotta have some reference to the mistake I made here in some way. All right, let's get the rotary cutter out again. I'm gonna just trim this edge. This is also the block that we bled, that I bled all over. This was kind of my first attempt at hand quilting. So I stabbed myself right at the end there. Man, my hand quilting got better as we went along for sure, but it did not start out very well. All right, I'm just gonna go slowly, and you know what? No, I'm not. I'm gonna use a ruler. I'm just gonna cut this by hand. Easy peasy. Meh. No. All right, so I'm just aligning with the edge here and trimming off all that excess. There we go. So that's our repair. We should be okay now. Save some of these little white pieces if I need to do another repair. So yep, so we got a seam on there. It's that'll be a little scar for it. But there we go. Check out the front now. So now we have the fabric going right up to the edge. Looks totally nice. It doesn't look super horrible or anything. So I'm okay with that. It's what we had to do, right? So in theory, I don't think I need to do it to the top. This is close, but I think a 1/4 inch seam allowance, which is what we'll end up doing, I think that will cover this up. It'll cover this up for sure, so I won't do any repairs to the top. This bottom, I might have to do a repair on, but I'm going to just... you know what? Let's do it. I'm I'm going to just wait for that, but you know what? We're here. Ooh, here's another piece. I better just take care of it now because it's going to be a lot harder when it's connected to tons of pieces. So let's just do that. Yeah, exactly. So in theory, I should put these cheater pieces down before I start quilting. So if I quilt, if I have my 4 blocks sewn together, like we have a few more, like here's an example. Here's 4 blocks sewn together. If I'm feeling like, I don't know, I should actually probably just add cheater pieces around the whole thing just in case from the get-go. Because like right here, I can tell, you know, this probably needs a cheater piece. This white one, I think we kept a extra on. I never trimmed it down because I wanted it to go over a little, and so we did. So this one I probably don't need anything on, but this one for sure, it looks like this has possibility to shrink up. So yep, it'd probably be smart for me to add a couple cheater pieces there, and maybe on this one too, before I start quilting. So I think that will be the plan from here on out. And really, I probably should have put it on before I even sewed it into 4. But we're learning, right? So I will make this repair earlier than next time. So, all right, I got 3 scrap pieces that look good here. Let's just do the other repair. Let's just do it. Exactly, Joe saying I wind up doing repairs and no one knows that it wasn't part of the pattern. Exactly. I mean, this particular quilt, there is so much going on with it. I mean, you know, if you want to critique something, I'm doing all different types of batting and all different, you know, there's all different techniques in here. If you want to be pointing out mistakes, you're going to like this quilt. So if being the quilt police makes your day critiquing, you know, all the mistakes in someone's quilt, go for it. If that's what you want to spend your day doing, fine. Because you will find them in this quilt for sure. But you know what? It's a project and it's getting done. And that feels pretty good. It will keep me warm on the couch still. All right. Let's take care of this again quick. Let's just open those seams. We'll do this other repair. Luckily, we are doing the machine quilting version of Quilt As You Go tonight, and that's going to go a lot faster than last night where we hand stitched it. So a couple little detours to add a little edge to here, and I think we're going to be just fine. All right, so again, I'm just going to kind of align it on the edge of the fabric. You know, here's the big issue, this little bump here. I think, you know, we have a little bit here, but I think it's mostly this bump in here. So I'm, with right sides together, I'm just going to kind of lay it sort of in place. I mean, we will cut this part off, that's fine. Or I mean, we won't be, like, I'm not going to bump it. I'm not going to, like, try and curve it around spots. I'm going to try and keep it straight. There we go, like that. Let's clip them all again. Probably don't need the clips, but it is handy. I'm going to shimmy this down a hair. All right. And I'm just doing like that 1/8 of an inch again, because all I need to do is make sure that it's attached to this raw, or this piece that's looking not so great. Luckily these pieces, I'm gonna have to cut more sashing now because I'm using up sashing. But I don't think I cut everything that I needed anyway. I'm gonna have to eventually make some more sashing pieces. All right, there we go. Oh, and one of the things that just gets me through that is just, I mean, in the end, it's either a patience or perfection issue, and both of those things I just am trying to actively get better at. So, the perfection issue is like, oh, I don't want to do any repairs because I want it to be perfect. And now, you know, the fact that I had to even do a repair means it's not perfect. And it sucks when you go out and you try and do something and it just doesn't turn out how you think. You know, it's those feelings. And what I do to try and counter that is just try and make it 80% good. You know what? I'm a human. I can only do things 80% good. I can't do them 100%. And just that knowing, like just feeling that in my body, the only 80%, it allows me to just keep going, basically, you know, and keep learning and keep trying new things. And so that's that. So that's the perfection half. The patience half is the other thing. If you're expecting to get it done in a certain way or a certain time, then that's the other reason when I'm like, I have to do all these stupid repairs. I wanted to get it done by this time, or I should have had it done by this time. You know, those sort of feelings. So again, I just try and, you know, let myself be okay with it and get it done when it gets done, and at least I'm working on it now. But yeah, so it's those two things. Perfection and patience, the two things I'm trying to deal with. And, you know, actually doing all these projects where I don't know how to do everything, like these Splendid Sampler projects, there's so many different things going on with it, and I'm trying things that are new to me. Just being in that state of learning and knowing that, oh, this is another learning piece, you know, which is kind of like everything I work on. But just knowing that it's meant for learning and look at all this new stuff I'm learning, that allows me to be okay with making more mistakes and stuff too. And also, if I make those mistakes, then I know, well, that's something I should work on. Well, why is that turning out like that? You know, that's pretty odd. So I either have to go out and learn something else, or I will keep it in mind to try and fix it for later. So I think the mistakes are good. Each mistake on this quilt is gonna make me better at the next quilt for sure, and especially with this particular quilt because we're playing around with all the different like quilting designs and stuff. I am trying so much on this quilt that I haven't done before. So this is definitely just a practice world. So I just try and be okay with things. It can be frustrating though. I can actually tell when it gets a little later in the evening here because I try to make things more perfect, or I try and tweak things a little bit more. I can actually feel, because I'm more tired, I think I can feel perfection brain creeping up on me, like feeling like I need to fix something or feeling like it's, you know, not perfect. And when I recognize that, I'm like, oh, probably time to stop for the evening. Move on to something else. All right, you guys, we got our two repairs. There, that bottom one and the side. We are finally ready for the actual quilt as you go. We finally have a piece that is 13 inches by 13 inches, you know, completely covered here. So, all right. We have this section that we have of 3 together now. Ultimately, we're going to have 5 sections of our 4 chunks. So this is the one that we put on yesterday. We're going to put this one tonight on the other end here. So this will be section 4. So we're going to magically connect these 2 pieces here. And we're going to do that with those sashing pieces. So back to our sashing. I have a whole pile cut. I'm going to need 2. So these are 6.5 inches, which are the size of the blocks before we sew them. So here's one of our blocks. it'll end up being 6.5 inches. So they should be the same size as our blocks before we sew them. And 1 inch wide. So I need 2 of those. You actually just need 1 all the way down. But since I have this cute little square in here, I need to have 2 with the square. So if you are not doing the square, if you're just doing a long border, then they don't need to be 6.5 inches. They just need to be 1 inch wide, and then the height of your block. Mine's 13 inches tall. But I'm mimicking that cute little square. So I've pre-cut up a bunch of little squares too. So let's just snag one. I think let's use this little guy. I think we did a blue one last night. All right, and that's just a 1 inch square. It's totally tiny. There is a reason for the 1 inch though, and it's because once we sew it, we'll have a 1/4 inch of batting on one side and a 1/4 inch of batting on the other that we're meeting up. So there is actually a reason for the 1 inch. Oh, I lost my guy. Here we go. So I'm going to sew these 3 together, and that will be our strip for the front. But we also need a strip for the back, and that is a little different. So it needs to be the size of your block. Mine just is going over the edge a little bit. I just didn't finish cutting it, but that's fine. We can let it hang over the edge. But this is 1.5 inches. So this is a little wider than our sashing piece. And the reason for that is we will actually be folding it in half when we sew. So it is a little bit different functioning piece here. And that's going to be this piece here when we're done. So, all right, let's prep our pieces first by sewing these 3 together, and then we'll be ready to start combining all this. After a little bit of pressing, and then we're good. Oh, Jennifer, with the first Splendid Sampler, it probably felt like I was more carefree at the end because towards the end, I knew how to do stuff. The first Splendid Sampler was completely... Tons of these techniques were new to me. Like, I had never needle turn applique. I had done one hexagon stitched to another hexagon as far as English paper piecing was going. I'd never like really squared up blocks. I never did a whole lot. So it probably felt like I was trying to go more 100%, but I was learning a whole lot more from the very ground up. And then towards the end we had more blocks that were using those techniques. So I actually got to go past the learning and the testing, the playing with those techniques a little bit more, the having fun, the practice of the techniques. So it probably felt a whole lot looser and stuff towards the end because I was actually knowing a little bit more of what I was doing. And that's kind of with this quilt too. I feel like, ooh, now I get to just practice these techniques a little bit more that I learned in the first Splendid Sampler. Hold on. Okay, so let's press this guy. Just throw it on top again here. Oh, you still didn't do the needle turn. There's still about 14 blocks from the Splendid Sampler one. Yeah, I know. I mean, like, seriously, the reason I was able to finish the first Splendid Sampler is because I knew I was coming on here with you guys to work on it, and then that I was learning new things. If I was doing it on my own without you guys, I don't know if I would have finished it. So I definitely appreciate hanging out with all of you and you helping me with where I get stuck and all of those things. All right, that's going to be our sashing strip for the front, and I'm going to press this guy sideways right away. Or press it in half right away. So this guy gets folded in half like that. If you're doing, if you have a patterned fabric, you're going to want the pretty pattern side outward. So we're hiding the, inside, the wrong side of the fabric, but mine is solid fabric, so it's the same on both sides, so it doesn't really matter for mine. But if you are using a pattern fabric, make sure it's facing outward. One of the beauties of this quilt versus the Splendid Sampler 2 versus the first Splendid Sampler, in my case here, is we are quilting it as we go. So after we finish all the blocks, we'll practically be done with the quilt. I won't have to sandwich the quilt. I won't have to go on the floor and try and match everything together, the batting. I won't have to quilt the whole thing. It'll already be quilted. It'll already be done. And that is the magic. Okay, so here are pieces again. So I'm going to sew these things onto the left side first. I suppose you could do it on either side, but I'm going to it feels more comfortable for me. I'm going to go on the left side and then attach it to the second side, the right side next. So what we want to do first is put the right sides together of your quilted piece and your sashing. And in my case, I want this little square to be lining up with my sashing piece here. So I'm going to just kind of match up those seams and get a clip in there just to hold that in place. All right. And then the other thing is that we actually want to sew this on as well. And it's going to be all raw edges together. So the nice folded side is here. The raw edges, those two edges here are going to be matching up with the raw edges here and here. So I just need to go along this edge here and clip all of these little edges together. So we got a big old sandwich of fabric here. Okay. So let's just clip this up top. Oh, I got some selvage here. I'm going to start a little bit higher there. I have enough that I can cut this off. I don't know why I didn't cut these exactly the 13 inches, but I didn't, so we're just going to go with it. Okay, get this edge. All right, and then right here, that's where I clipped that front piece. I'm just going to lift it up temporarily and clip it again. So our sashing piece should be the exact same size as our block. And then in theory the back piece could too, but again I just made it a little bit bigger. All right, I think that will work. So I'm going to just sew with a 1/4 inch here. I might just go a little shy of the 1/4 inch, a scant 1/4 inch, and we'll be ready for the next part here. So we're doing the actual quilt as you go process right now, starting with these 3 pieces. I guess the first part of quilting as you go is quilting up a piece. So we do have that. All right, let's do this. So I'll be able to get a better seam allowance than I was last night because the batting I'm using different battings throughout this quilt too. The batting on this block is not nearly as poofy as the block we did last night. I mean, it's crazy different. That's going to be one of the fun things about this quilt too. I'm using up all the weird batting I had sitting around. Like when you make a quilt, sometimes when you cut off the edge of the quilt, the batting, you have a lot of batting left over, and so using those up, feel good about that. All right, lining up the rest of this. All right, I think that's fine. All right, let's see what we got here. Ooh, let's clip this off too. We'll trim these edges now. I don't need all that excess hanging over. All right, so what we end up with is the 3 pieces together. So here's our front sashing piece, folded over like that, and then our back piece is right like so. What we're gonna do now, first I'm gonna just trim these off. That's why I'm gonna just cut them off, really. Let's just trim this. Zoop. That's good enough. Do this top little piece too. There we go. All right, didn't need the rotary cutter. On the 4 block squares, you pick randomly. Yep, I was pretty random about these. I'm trying to actively be a little random because I think I'd go crazy just trying to make it perfect. So I definitely am being slightly random. As I finish a few, like here are some that we have done. If I finished like 8 or more, then I'll just kind of grab and put them in a block. Sometimes we're more random than other times, but I usually kind of get a few done and then we switch over to this. All right, I'm gonna press this open, or I'm gonna press it to the side here. I'm not gonna press this, so this is gonna stay exactly where it is. The back flap, I'm gonna leave that, but this front one, you can just finger press it. I think I'm going to just kind of run over it with the iron a little bit. Little edge there. Oh, I forgot the cute little button we put on this clock. All right, so now we have, this is what it should look like. So the front has been pressed over, and then we have our seam allowance, and then this back flap is just hanging there. That's gonna stay there for now. All right, we're gonna just ignore that for now. Okay, we're gonna take our next piece, and now we're gonna flip it so right sides are together, and we are going to do the same thing. We are gonna clip it to this piece. Again, I'm gonna try and match up my little square with the seam there. I think we'll do it so we can, I'm gonna clip it so I can actually see this side. So I'm gonna flip it over like this. And now we're just lining up the edges. And we're only gonna sew, maybe I should sew where I can see the front yet. Yep, I'm gonna flip it around. We're gonna go this way. Oh, I can't see the front. Never mind. We're gonna do it like this. All right, so just lining these edges. I think I only need one more, but this is probably fine. All right, and we're gonna sew that 1/4 inch seam allowance there as well. So we are now, ooh, let's make sure that they're both upright. I think they are. We would have figured that out earlier. Yep, we're fine. That came out last night, and now I'm nervous about like accidentally rotating one of these 180 degrees, but we're fine. All right, so that 1/4 inch. A little stuck on things here. We're getting bulky here. Ooh, I'm gonna have to help this in to get started. There we go. Oh, nope, slid out. There we go. So we're just keeping our edges matched. We still have this flap. We'll deal with that next. All right, approaching that center point. So it's a little awkward doing all this, but not as awkward as if I'd have to do it on a whole giant quilt. So I like that we're just doing it with this small quilt as you go. Ooh, I'm getting these little threads stuck in here. Okay, that's it. scissors. Here we are. Oh, you could get any size clips. I think these are just the like original size Clover clips. I flung one the other night. So here's what a mini Wonder clip looks like. So these are Wonder clips by Clover. Clover's the brand. There's other companies too, but I'm not familiar with those. So this is I think the original size, and here's the mini. It has like a little pointed edge a little bit there. They do come very big too for like binding. I know I should set up my extension table for the steampunk machine here. I do have an extension table that adjusts, so it could go on here, but tomorrow I'm going to be switching back to the other machine because I'm going to be doing some more free motion quilting tomorrow. Cause I'm out of blocks that we can sew onto other blocks. So I need to quilt some more. So otherwise I would have, but yeah, I need to, I need to use the other machine. All right, but here's what we have now. We have the front is sewn on, all nice. Here's our sashing with our little repair strip right next to it. That's kind of funny. I kind of like it. But there's our sashing piece here. That's all sewn. But now the back, you can see, I mean, this is the whole question mark of quilt as you go, right? Because we have two raw edges. How do you hide those edges, right? And it's from this extra binding strip. So now we fold that over, and I'm going to actually pin this in place with some pins. And now we can just sew down the edge. We hand stitched it last night. So here's the one from last night. We folded it over and I hand stitched them all. Tonight we are going to machine sew. So what you want to do is try and cover up that stitch that you made from the seam of actually sewing the sashing on. I have this extra line here because that's where we made the repair, so it's pretty dark, but oh well. I'm gonna let's do it on the table. Actually, I'm gonna do it on here so I don't scratch the table. But let's grab some pins. It would be much easier to sew on my machine with the extension table though, because everything would lay flat. All right, so I'm just gonna fold this over. And I'm gonna machine stitch it down. Ooh, that's not a very strong pin. I think these are a little stronger. I'm gonna stitch this edge down just like a 32nd of an inch, or just right on the edge, as close as I can get with the machine. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, so this is a method if you don't want to hand stitch it. And actually, if you are going to do this method, you might actually want to do this flap on the front and do this other sashing, the 1-inch sashing on the back, because then on the front, you'll have control of where this seam will lie, right? On the front, you'll have your nice seam, because I have this on the back, you're going to see like a weird seam go up here. So if you're completely planning on machine stitching these all on, I would actually suggest do the flap, that 1.5 inch thing on the front, and the 1 inch on the back. I think it'll look a little bit nicer, because you won't have like a couple visible seams, because you'll be covering it up like what I'm doing now. Might look nicer. Here's one that I did machine sew down. So all of the pins that I have, they either have the glass top, the glass ball, or they have like a silicone edge, so I can press them if I want, but I don't need to press them for this. I'm using pins now instead of clips because I do need to have this lay flat. I can't get a clip in here with this. So I actually have to use pins. There's my blood. I guess that is just going to be part of the quilt now. Oh, Nora, that's so glad to hear. And if you guys have any questions ever, like along the way during this, just ask. If I don't answer them, it's probably because it flipped through too quickly. Yeah, the cornerstones might be a little bit difficult if it's on a flap, but really all you would do is make it 1 inch by 1.5 inches, and then it would fold over and probably work just fine. But yeah, that might be a little tricky. Ooh, I'm trying to just pull this piece so it covers up that other seam. If it doesn't, that's not gonna be the end of the world. Yeah, these silicone ones are nice and long. All right, let's hope that this is our last pin. I hate using pins because I always stab myself. But when you need them, you need them. All right, so I'm just gonna basically tack down as close to the edge as I can. This is my folded edge. I'm gonna just try and machine sew that down. Ideally, I would want it to live exactly in this seam. So in theory, I could stitch it from the front. Gosh, do I even dare do that? I'm afraid that if I stitch it from the front to get it exactly in that seam so it's hidden, I'm afraid I'm gonna miss. So I'm gonna just stitch from the back, but you could in theory do it from the front to, if your flap was just pulled a little bit more. Ooh, I gotta clean off this whole area because it's gonna have I'm gonna need to get the quilt through the neck here. Okay, let's give it a go. I'm gonna roll this up a bit. Oh, you think I should try it? Try doing it from the front? It's looking a little hairy. I'm gonna do it from the back. I don't feel confident that I would get it all the way. All right, I need my stiletto still, though. I like having that around. My stiletto is like my extra little finger that's pointy and can get into places. This also might be a good place for a quilting foot, but I'm using what I got right here on this old machine. Ooh, I just need help getting this started. Let's get this up again. Luckily, this first little part is going to be, part of the seam allowance later. So if this first part isn't perfect, that's not going to matter. So I'm going to just try and get over the edge. All right, now I'm going to just literally try and get right on the edge there. Remove that pin. I need to use my stiletto as a little extra pinning along the way. All right, I think this is working. I'm gonna stab myself with the stiletto. All right. Just getting that edge. This is definitely a nice alternative to hand stitching. I actually do like skipping that. I do love hand stitching. That is nice, but it is tough on the hands for sure. And you know what? Sometimes you just want to be done. Okay, again, typically you wouldn't have this weird line here, but that is where I did my repair earlier tonight, so that's why that's there. Otherwise, this should just kind of almost blend in with the rest of the blocks. Like this seam will be just barely visible as another seam. All right, remove that. Here's where it's starting to get close to my seam underneath. Much, much faster. than the hand stitching we were doing last night. All right, seam allowance wants to pop out from under there, so I'm just gonna push it back in. So I'm definitely pretty new to this process still, the quilt as you go process. I'm sure there's other techniques and other ways of doing it. This is my first quilt. Well, with this quilt, it's my first time doing this method, and I'm really enjoying it so far. I'm definitely going to do it more. I love the idea of quilting these small little pieces before, having to, and skipping basically the end of having to quilt a whole quilt. I'm intrigued by that, so it's exciting when these start to go together and we basically have a finished quilt part here. Pretty fun. All right, we're done here, you guys. Let's take a look at it. Oh, this stiletto is a turkey lacer. And that's it. It's just a turkey lacer with some pretty beads on. So, come Thanksgiving, you can probably just get that in the grocery store. Get some pretty beads, put a dab of glue on the bottom, and you are good to go. You got yourself a stiletto. Okay, let's clip that piece off the top. All right, let's just peek at the back quick. So here's the back. There, I stitched it down just right on the edge there. You can hardly tell. It just looks like another seam. The only way you can really tell is that I think I'm using darker thread than I was earlier. So there's that. Yeah, this is a light color thread. I'm using a little bit darker now, but that's fine. I ran out of the light thread. And then the front. Okay, so let's see how close we got. So I didn't get quite on the seam, but some parts I got right on the seam. So not too shabby. I think it's not bad at all. So there we go. We now have 4 parts of the quilt connected, whereas the beginning of the week we just had the 2 together. So awesome. Yay! So one more on the end and we will have a full row. So I have 10 across, so 10 of these blocks across. So basically 5 of my sections of 4. And we have one more to go. So tomorrow we will, I think I have a few more of these. Let's see, I have, just 2. So I have 2 blocks of 4 that are sewn together, ready to be quilted. So we can choose one of these tomorrow and we'll get some batting and our backing fabric, our yellow backing fabric, and we'll quilt up another block. I'll switch to the other machine and that'll be the plan. Oh, I think we might actually get it attached. So if we can quilt if we can complete one of these tomorrow, completely quilt it, then on Friday we can attach it to the end here and we will have our full row. Ooh, that'll be good. That'll feel awesome. All right, I'm gonna flip you guys around. All right, so let's take a look at this fully connected. So all right, this one right here, that's the one that we did tonight. And look, it's coming together. And what I love is you can just see all the little cornerstones and you can't tell which one was part of the quilting and which one was part of the little quilt as you go sashing. It just all kind of blends together. So awesome. I'm super stoked. This has just been relaxing and fun working on this. I'm really, really happy with it. So thanks again, guys. Tomorrow we will be machine quilting again. So if you want, if you haven't machine quilted before or want me to try something, try a motif or try some feathers or something like that, let me know and we will do that tomorrow. And yes, I think we will try and do any potential repairs tomorrow. We won't quite know because it does shrink a little bit when we quilt it. So, but we'll guess. I think from doing all these other ones, we can kind of guess which ones might need the repair, and we'll get that on for sure before we start quilting tomorrow. Good idea. All right, so I will get this up on YouTube if you'd like to see this quilt as you go process again. It should be up in an hour or so. I'm uploading it right now when we're done here, and that's at Penguin and Fish Movies on YouTube. I hope you subscribe there and click the like button here on Facebook, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Have a great evening. Good night.